Saturday. Christmas comes early.
Unbelievable! Welcome to this incredible scene.
Bills.
To the end zone!
Chargers.
It's a touchdown!
An exclusive NFL game.
That's fantastic!
Live in primetime.
Wow!
Only on Peacock.
With a Christmas gift to their fans.
They're having some fun now.
Bills versus Chargers. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Exclusively on Peacock.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Molby on the Spot, your weekly chance thanks to Anfield Index Pro to hear the wit and wisdom of Mr. Jan Molby as he and I go over the week that was for Liverpool. So let's welcome him back once again. Good evening, good afternoon, Jan.
Yeah, it's a bit of both, sort of in between, isn't it, Trevor? But nevertheless, good evening, good afternoon.
It's a weird one for us. We're a bit earlier, but we wanted to get something in before Christmas. So it's nice that we get a chance to do it, especially as I had to cry off last week with a migraine. Scarily enough, a 4-day event that I could really have done without. But in the meantime, there's been a lot of Reds-based activity, and we'll take it back just as far as the final European group game, just to touch on that. We'll obviously then go to the Mank game, and we'll speak about last night, which has, I think, more significance than just a Carabao Cup quarter-final, and obviously look ahead to Arsenal as well. But there's a lot of other bits and pieces in around there, a lot of moving parts that I want to try and touch on, just to talk about how the group stage for Europe, the European thing, ended. I suppose it sort of did a little bit of getting the thing back on track was the idea, right? That would have been the plan, but unfortunately didn't necessarily work out that way. I found it hard to be too concerned about it one way or the other, because it was very much a game that had no significance for us. There was, I suppose, one or two things you'd like to have seen come out of it, maybe for us in terms of individual lads putting their hands up and stuff like that. But I find it very hard to be too critical in the way that I saw some people being about how, it's Liverpool, it's a game we must win, it's blah, blah, blah. I found it very hard to care about a dead rubber game. Jan, did it have any significance for you at all, that one?
No, it didn't really. And hadn't been a player myself, I know what that's like. When you were given an opportunity and everybody goes, this is now your opportunity to put your hand up and go, pick me. That's not how it works, Trevor. It's very rarely in that manner you find somebody. So I always find that very unfair. I always find it fairer if our strongest 11 is missing one player, and then you stick somebody in and you go on, show us what you can do. I think that's a much fair and easier way to judge people. As I think there's too much put on when we play 6, 7, 8 players who normally don't play and expect them to go. No, it's still a European game. It's still one of the strongest teams in Belgium, isn't it? So there's no rollovers. So no, I wasn't, and I didn't sit down hoping that somebody was going to spring out at me and go, here, I'm ready. I kind of think that, and again, this goes back to when I was a manager, you kind of know what you've got. One game is not going to change your mind. So it was what it was in the end. It's one of them, Trevor, isn't it? Prior to a game, you go, I'm not really bothered. But of course, once you play, you want to win. Nobody wants to ever lose, regardless of what team you put out, isn't it? So, but yeah, I mean, it might even take 1 or 2 rounds more before this gets really competitive, this Europa League is. And so it is at the moment a little bit of a cruise for us where we can rest 1 or 2 players.
I'm really glad you went there to your take on it as an ex-player and as a manager, because both of them come into the last thing I want to say about it, and it touches on the subject you were saying about how you couldn't really expect someone to leap out from that game and put their hand up, because the way Klopp set the team up was a strong spine, nominally at least. So through the middle, we looked pretty good. But he set up two flanks that were completely made from rookies. And I think already you're on a hiding to nothing there if you're one of them, because the guy behind you has less or as little experience as you do. And you're relying then on those guys who are the more senior players to really step up and allow those other fellas to play, give them a platform to play. And they didn't do that. And here's another factor, Jan, and again, you've touched on it. They know the game means nothing, and they know they've got massive games coming up against Manchester United and Arsenal, and they're probably even subconsciously maybe or unconsciously sort of protecting themselves a little bit. So it really felt like a hiding to nothing for those four kids who started on our flanks.
Yeah, I think the thing with that, Trevor, is that it gets the feel of whatever you call it today. In our day, it was simply called a reserve game. And it gets a feel of that. So the big heads, as they used to call us, you kind of go, this is just a glorified sort of reserve game, isn't it? So as you correctly said, I mean, you put it nicely in that you said that the minds were already at Manchester United. I just think it's like a footballing thing. You go, we're not taking this really serious, are we, because of the lineup and whatever else. And so I'll just take 5, 7, 8% off my performance, isn't it? And then all of a sudden, almost regardless of who you play, you've got a game. And I also think the way that the game is played today, and if you look at the way that Liverpool play it, when we're at our best, our fullbacks are flying and roaming, and our wide attackers are bang at it, aren't they? So as much as we put those four youngsters on either flank, it's still a big ask. They still have to make real contribution to the way that we play for us to look good, and they just didn't quite do that.
I think an awful lot of people were starting to get a little bit concerned about performance level, whether that's fair or not fair when you shake the team up in that regard. And that very much was the story of the afternoon against Manchester United. Certainly the story of the aftermath. But if you were to listen to the esteemed likes of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, who at this stage are just Sky company men who just sell a narrative, it's painfully obvious every game what they're trying to do. It really gets in my head. Like if the game is in Sky, I'm struggling with it because they're hard to listen to. It's patently not talking about what's actually happening. It's the story being sold, and the story that was being sold during the Sky coverage, Jan, was that Liverpool were appalling, another appalling performance, and Manchester United, plucky United, and maybe they'll be delighted with the first half. They'll be delighted with the result, and so on and so forth. Now, there's fallout after that we'll get to, involving a certain Roy Keane and Virgil van Dijk. We'll get to that. But first of all, as for that narrative, in the immediate aftermath, Jan, I was as disgusted and broken-hearted as anyone else, because it's the Manx and you want to win, and you certainly want to win at Anfield. But none of sensible people, yourself, I'll include myself in the semi-sensible group, weren't expecting that it was going to be another 7-0. This is a totally bullshit story that was put out there that people were expecting us to hammer them. No, we were doing what we have been doing for the majority of our time together, working together on this show, is looking at the two teams and saying, I reckon we're better than them, so we reckon we should get a win. That's all it was. It was confidence coming from a place of the performance, or at least the results achieved by the team so far this season. So I found it very hard to be too down, and there was 34 attempts. You know, a lot of them are block shots and stuff like that, but it was total dominance. United had maybe 2 opportunities, and Alisson did what Alisson does. So the idea that it was somehow a ragged performance, I don't think is completely fair. Now that the dust has settled a bit, you can analyse it with a bit of distance. What did you make of the whole showing?
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
I mean, obviously, a bit like you, Trevor, the first thing, and I was working in the studio in Copenhagen, and my first thoughts were disappointed. The studio host said, "Is it a massive triumph for Manchester United?" And I said, I understand they've sunken a bit over the last few years, but surely they haven't sunken that deep that they would look at that as being a massive triumph. I just didn't get that. And then we just talked about it being another game in a really busy season. In a really busy season, you have your ups and downs. But then it was kind of the next sort of 24, 48 hours wherever they took this game. I mean, and you mentioned Carragher and Neville, who we've discussed them before, is that when they started out on Sky, they were excellent. Now they kind of become like everybody else, haven't they? It's all about clickbait and selling products and whatever. But I was also surprised to read John Aldridge's column in the Liverpool Echo, and equally, you know, having a real pop at Szoboszlai and Darwin Núñez and the atmosphere at Anfield. And I just don't know. I just think as a player, you've been there. You know, you're going to play in between 50 and 60 games in a season. And you understand these games come along, isn't it? You know, they come along in every season. For me, it wasn't a big deal. They came. We didn't get a chance to speak before the game, but I thought it was a pretty easy game for them to set up, you know, get everybody behind the ball and just hope that we weren't going to hit the target. And then succeeded in that. We moved on. Since then, we've had another game where we've shown more of what we like to see, isn't it? But we go 10 games like that, Trevor. Maybe that's too many, but we go 5 or 6 games like that. I worry. And there'll be people pointing, and correctly so, pointing to the games before. We didn't play well at Palace. We didn't play particularly well at Sheffield United. And the Fulham game was a very bizarre game. But we found a way of winning them. So that in itself is a positive, isn't it? So the only game of late that we haven't found a way to win was Manchester United. And we did everything apart from having our shooting boots on. I thought the best chance was the Trent one outside the box with the side foot. I just thought with Trent and his ability and the fact that he's gone with a controlled instep.
Deep underground, the Jelly Belly factory, Bibi is in her secret laboratory creating the weird and wild flavors of Bean Boozled.
I've done it again!
Is it pomegranate or old bandage? Dare to compare. Bean Boozled, 6th edition. Are you brave enough?
I couldn't believe he didn't hit the target, but, you know, we've all missed him, haven't we, Trevor?
Yeah, of course. And there was endless replays of the one that involved Núñez. And we had Jamie's squeaky voice talking about how he couldn't believe that he'd stopped. And of course, that then becomes the new narrative. Is your man a headless idiot? And does he understand how to play the game? Blah, blah, blah. I felt really sorry for him because I guess if Diaz had not gotten in his way, and Luis Diaz currently is not a contributor to our football team in any way, shape or form. If he hadn't gotten in the way, there is the ability or the opportunity, at least for Núñez, to finish it with his left foot or to try and have a go at getting the shot on target. So I do kind of understand his reaction, not chasing the ball down. People can say whatever, but it was very interesting. I spoke about this on, I think, Raw last night. Klopp was asked about Núñez. It was before the Man game, but he was asked about Núñez, and I think the conversation, it was the ex-Watford goalkeeper who's quite good with the media, and I just can't think of his name. You'll know if I said Bev. There you go. And Foster was saying to Klopp, you know, James Miller had said that the one guy from the whole squad that everyone was so excited about was Darwin Núñez, that if he can crack it, the guy is a potential just machine for us. He said that he was so excited about this kid's potential. And Klopp went on to chat to Foster about what Núñez does. And we spoke about it in the previous game. It may not be on the sharp end at the moment as much as we'd like in terms of goals, but it's the assist like last night, or the intervention before the assist like the previous game, where you can see what it is he's offering the team. He became the focus, I think, of the frustration in a way that I felt wasn't fair. There was nobody really particularly good in terms of end product against the Max. So it felt a bit unfair to single Núñez out.
I mean, we've discussed him at times on this show, and you can, and where I stand on that. I don't think he's really going to turn into something. And this we permanently isn't going into something he isn't, because he is a consistent footballer. He is a footballer who does things off that sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't come off. I thought he might have been much more of a sort of run into vein of form and then try a little bit and then have a pick up, but he's not. So he is very much in and out in games. So I can go, he's had a good month. No, he's just in and out all the time. That's how he plays, isn't it? That's the way he's been brought up. And we just got to accept that. But there's still, when you add the two together, the now total goal involvement, isn't it? And you add the goals to the assists, there isn't a lot wrong. But of course, the narrative can also be, I might be wrong, but is it 1 goal in 11 or no goals, whatever? I don't know what it is. So it kind of depends on how you look at it, isn't it? But yes, if you'd have asked me when we signed him, would I be surprised at the way he's playing now? I would have said yes. But I've watched him now for almost 18 months, and I'm no longer surprised. I think I know exactly what this kid is about, and we just have to accept that. And if we can have a manager who can sort of handpick starting games, coming off the bench, and some people are saying he's better coming off the bench. I don't know, because you don't know what you're going to get. So he falls into that category of you have to be a brave manager not to play him. And if you don't start him and things don't go well, you get criticised, because he's that kind of a time bomb, isn't he, where I don't know. So it's very much left to Klopp, isn't it, to pick and choose, isn't it? But at the moment he's picking, and it's going quite well.
We're going to revisit that topic when we look ahead to the Arsenal game, based on what we talked about from last night in the Carabao Cup quarter-final. But I do want to just delve into one further thing. You couldn't avoid seeing the comments Roy Keane made immediately afterwards, having witnessed Virgil's interview, where he said about how the Manx were delighted. They seemed to be chuffed with getting a point. I'm sorry, that's reality. That what Keane tried to talk about, how that was arrogance, and the tribalism came out of him very, very strongly in a way that I suppose we can't really be too surprised at. But I mean, it showed a bit of lack of self-awareness. This fella has been more critical of Manchester United than anyone else I've ever seen. I mean, really viciously so, and called lads out for arrogance and all the rest of it. It just speaks, I think, to what you're saying and your reaction in studio there to how the standards have dropped, that he felt he needed to get so partisan and defend the club's honour, and that it wasn't just the players. I've seen clips from Man United supporter shows where they're watching the final whistle goes and they're cheering in 0-0. That's the reality of it. I don't think it's arrogant for Virgil van Dijk, Jan, to point that out, is it?
I found it ridiculous. I have nothing against Roy. I always get on well with him. I always speak to him. But I don't know why he found the need to get offended on Manchester United's behalf. Because next week on Boxing Day, when they play at home against Aston Villa and they probably get turned over, he'll be the first one to go, this is not good enough. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know where he's coming from. And Virgil van Dijk has said, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what the problem? Do you know what the issue in a game like that is, Trevor? Because there was very little credit given to the game, and rightly so, because it wasn't a great game. But as a player, you'll come in that dressing room being a Liverpool player, and you'll sit there and you'll go, any credit given to that game is going to be given to them. Yeah, for fucking that. You know, and that's like, that pisses you off as a player.
Yeah.
You go, people are going to go and praise that. Not everybody, but the people who will find praise for the game is going to praise Manchester United for that. And you as a footballer will go, is that what we come to now? When we play Manchester United, you know, we're in a position that we can praise that type of tactic and that way of playing. You know, one of the first things I said after the game, don't for 1 minute think that this performance will help Manchester United beat West Ham and Aston Villa, their next two oppositions. Because it won't. Because they'll never be allowed to play like that again until they play Manchester City. You know, so it's not a game they can use to anything. I heard somebody on a podcast go, can you use this as a springboard? For what? You know, he didn't. That's what winds me up. But that was the first thing I said. They play West Ham and Aston Villa. They can't use that type of performance for anything, isn't it? So, as a player, Trevor, that, you know, that first hour after the game when it's raw, just like your program, raw, isn't it? You go, I can't have that. I'm not going to listen to all these fuckers talking about them doing well and coming to Anfield and putting up a masterclass of whatever that was. Yeah,
whatever that was. That's the thing.
What was it, Trevor?
Well, wasn't it a classic?
You spent 400 million as some on players, and you can produce that. And their best player is Johnny Evans.
Yeah. It's remarkable, and very much what ex-Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho once called parking the bus. That's what it was. They were solidly set up, and if that crowd of players with that manager can't manage at least that, I don't know what to say. So yeah, it's just strange. It is a strange. It's people trying to exist in two separate worlds, like over here and then reality, and it rubbed me up the wrong way. And I got a lot of abuse for not being as critical of Liverpool as other people were, because you know what people are like immediately afterwards. They're fuming and they want to be completely negative. I was like, okay, yeah, but you know, can we have a little bit of balance here? Do look at the statistics. What happened was, and you used the word there earlier on, and it escapes me now, but basically you were referring to the idea that we were a blunt instrument up top, you know, we forgot our shooting boots. That's what it boiled down to on the day. There was enough of the approach play. Some of the final passing was a bit shitty as well. And I guess we'll come back to that, because that seemed to have been a rot that set in terms of, yeah, we were getting some good results, but the performances weren't great, and they weren't anything to write home about, and left you feeling a little bit uneasy. Then there's the loss in Europe. Then there's the draw with the Manx, which felt like a loss because of what winning would have meant, sitting top of the league. And so we have this spill out of negativity. And last time I felt anything like that was when we were going for the league in the crossover between 2008 and 2009, that season with Rafa Benitez. And I was over for a game, and we had drawn to go top of the league by a point. And I never felt as miserable coming out of Anfield in my life, ever. And everybody was fucking miserable. And it was because the anxiety level was so high that we were close to doing this thing that we hadn't done for ages. And I think maybe that's part of the negativity. But I'm coming to the point here. Forgive the ramble. Jurgen Klopp was talking yesterday evening, I think it was yesterday evening, about the atmosphere at Anfield and how he needs it to be as good as possible for the Arsenal game. And he went as far as saying, you know, if you're not, he used the football analogies, it's if you're not in the right form, or if you're not in the right shape, he said, give your ticket to someone else. And that, again, I found myself on the receiving end of a few biting comments, because it's my take, Jan, that you can't be telling someone else how to support. I understand the manager calling for it, that's fine. Let's get ourselves up for it. But I get very tired of this out-of-towners thing. You'll understand where I'm coming from, not being a native Scouser yourself. You get to the game to see your team as often as you can from wherever you are, whether it's Ireland or Norway or whatever. You're not the problem, in my opinion. It's too easy of a target. You know, the people talk about the corporate tickets and all that kind of stuff. I just wonder, like, do you feel that when you're in the ground, do you feel that the atmosphere is perhaps not what it was? Do you feel it's appropriate to speak to the fans and tell them that they need to get their act together. Because when Guardiola does it, I find it pathetic. So I was a little bit, I didn't know what to make of it when Klopp did it.
No, I'm not a fan of it, Trevor. It is what it is. I came in 1984, which was on the back of a very successful period. And a guy, Brian Reed, has written a book about that period. And he talks about the fans. And the fans were very difficult to impress because they'd seen it all, travel all over Europe. They'd seen some of the best players. And he said, we were guilty. He said, but it wasn't conscious. We were just guilty of being a little bit, because we'd seen it all. And it wasn't exciting, as exciting playing Coventry or whoever it was anymore. He said, maybe we're at that stage in it because we've had a lot. And I believe that with fans inside Anfield, have we lost one of the last 100 and odd Premier League games? So, it's like, what gets them out of their seats? It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, and maybe they just suffer a little bit from that. I said, but this thing about, and I keep saying, you can't be who you are without having fans from all over the world. And you can't be who you are without fans from all over the world wanting to travel to be with you, And that is really what they got to find a way of embracing that. You can't keep saying there's no atmosphere because there's no locals in the ground. That's just a ridiculous thing to say, isn't it? So, he'll get sorted, Trevor. He's called to arms here now for Saturday against Arsenal. I reckon there'll be a roaring atmosphere, and also 5:30 on the Saturday just before Christmas will lend itself to a belting atmosphere, that's for sure.
You know as well as I do that a few pints are going to have a big influence on that. That's just, nighttime games. That's just the way it goes. And I look forward to it. I look forward to hearing Anfield bouncing. No one likes it when the atmosphere is flat. I look around when I go over, and I see fellas experiencing the match through a phone, and I just despair. I see lads getting off early. I'm like, what the fuck did you bother coming for? What are you going to beat the traffic? These are the kind of things that bug me. But I will never tell someone else how to support. That's the only thing I'm saying. I feel uncomfortable saying that. I've had people talking to me today about how we have a responsibility as fans to turn up and perform, and to that's our responsibility. And that doesn't sit well with me, because you don't know what's going on with anyone at any time. And some of the most miserable bastards at the match, Jan, are old fellas from Liverpool who sit there and say nothing for the entire game except get on the lads' back. So we have to have a little bit of balance about it. And I understand all the calls for having a young people section. Let's see if we can make that work. I think that could be great, or a singing section, whatever. Open to all of that, but it just gets into dodgy territory when you have fans turning on each other about not being good enough fans. Not sure about that. What did happen on the back of all this conversation was we rolled into last night, Jan, not knowing what to expect in terms of what the performance level would be, but fearing probably that it would be on the same par as the previous few. What we got was something completely different. What we got was absolutely fantastic to watch. I don't think I've been as happy after a match because of what it meant for a long time. It felt like a performance that we haven't seen since maybe the heyday of our classic front three there, where we were just playing rings around the team and getting the goals. For so many reasons, I was really high on last night's performance. The fact that it was at Anfield, Jan, I think is huge. The fact that we got minutes for some players who then turned around and put in savage performances like Curtis Jones, like Harvey Elliott, like Dom Szoboszlai recapturing his groove. These are all fantastic things to arrive out of the game. That's what I meant earlier on when I said it felt like it was bigger than a Carabao Cup quarter-final. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, it was important. It was important to find a groove again. It was important to find new energy because there is more and more teams who need energy in their playing. But we're one of them. If we don't have the right amount of energy, we kind of know where it's heading, isn't it? So, yeah, everything was right. It's a good opposition, West Ham, to play. Not West Ham, but a David Moyes team, because he struggles in these games, doesn't he? He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't trust his players to go to Anfield and play. So he's asking them to, sit in and see how the first 20 minutes go on, bang, bang. And by that, we're in the groove and we've controlled the game. We're playing in the final third and they can't get out. And so in terms of that, it was perfect. But still, you have to produce. And we did. 5. I mean, it was remarkable. It was only 5 because we had so many chances. I know they made a few changes, but so did we. And you rightly pointed out, there were some really good performances. It was obviously more the attacking players that you would note in it, but the young centre-half, Billy Quanstar, he's got something. I'm telling you, Trevor.
When it comes to business and meeting travel in Orlando, it's never business as usual. I could go on for days about all the incredible places to hold your meeting, or the breadth of industries that call it home. But when it's time for your business to make the extraordinary happen, Albert Monero of Limitless Solutions said it best. Orlando is an incredible place for innovation. And when work wraps for the day, the evening is just getting started. I'd love to tell you about all the Michelin-rated restaurants or the array of outstanding dishes that'll have you coming back again and again. But executive chef Guillaume Robin of Lake Nona Wave Hotel can sum it up better than me. Orlando has a world of artisans, so you can try incredible cuisines from across the globe. It's so true, and there's so much more. So dive in and see what's happening in Orlando, where the possibilities for business travel are unbelievably real. Learn more at orlandoforbusiness.com.
He's got something about him, and I really like him.
Do you think when you watch him, what's the most striking thing about him is the calm? Looks like he's been at it for years.
But he plays a cute pass, Trevor. When you're a centre half into modern day football, you're obviously encouraged to pass it along, and a lot of centre half, right side of centre half, open their body up and give it to the right fullback and whatever, isn't it? He gets the ball, he takes a step forward because he knows the moment he takes a step forward, the game changes again, and everybody has to move. And then he likes to slide them in between, whether that's in between to a midfield player or in between to the fullback on the other side of the attacking player. I like all that. They're only minor details. They're never going to be details that get people out of their chair. But I just like the fact that he sees more than most centre-halves. Most centre-halves in today's game are technically very good, isn't it? And they play good save passes. But I just think this boy's just got an extra little addition to his passing. And that's to do with his calmness, because he's quite prepared to get the ball, step in, let them come towards him, and then he uses that to find the good passes. And I think he's special. I have to be honest. I think he's special.
And it's so refreshing to see Virgil back to his absolute kind of colossus status as well. He did a thing in a game recently which was reminiscent of that moment against Tottenham all those years back, where it's just you can't get over how good he is. The timing of his tackles, the ability to read the game. It's just brilliant to see him back at his very best, because it means, like you were saying earlier on, you can bring a kid in alongside someone really good in a team that's doing pretty well, and they're going to rise to the occasion. I thought even Quansah's supposed moment of weakness last night around the when we conceded the goal to Jared Bowen, I thought he actually did really well. I thought he got his feet right. I thought he positioned himself perfectly to show the lad in on his weak foot. Now, with the exception of blocking the shot, I thought he did everything pretty okay. So I agree with you. I think there's something about this fella. He just seems to feel the game in a way that's a little bit better than most people. I want to ask you something, because I was listening to a show today where they were talking about, the show was about Steve Bruce, believe it or not, and the topic of his time when he arrived to Manchester United came up. And obviously he had a spell at, I think, Norwich before that, and had done pretty well there to attract Alec Ferguson's eye. And one of the early pieces of advice he got from Ferguson apparently was, a growl at him at the training ground to, hey, stop pretending you're Franz Beckenbauer, right? So Bruce took from that he wanted them to meet the edge, more agricultural, head the ball, kick the ball, clear your lines type stuff. And when you were playing the game, there was a lot of those lads around, even into the early 2000s, I think. But I just thought it was really interesting what you said there, and that's why I wanted to bring this topic in. Do you think it's possible to still be that type of defender now? Just the uncompromising, head clear, play simple pass, just that. I'm asking the wrong man, because I know when you step in there, you're bringing...
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
The talent that you had and the ability to read the game. But looking at the modern game, do you think it's a necessity for lads to be able to be proper footballers as well in terms of their passing? Or could you still accommodate a lad who's kind of the old school type?
So where could you play in the Premier League if you were old school centre-half? Sean Dyche at Everton would have you because he puts the emphasis on his defenders being able to defend. I also think Roy Hodgson, although it would be wrong to accuse Roy Hodgson's 2 centre-halves of not being good footballers, because they are. But I think Roy Hodgson would be quite happy if they weren't, as long as they defended. But I think even if you look, Luton obviously come up with a championship team that gives itself in. But I even think Sheffield United is trying to move on a little bit and get better ball playing centre-halves. Burnley, you couldn't play at Burnley if you were just a bread and butter centre-half. You couldn't play at Bournemouth either anymore. So there isn't many where you could play anymore. But I always... When do we visit that, Trevor? You kind of visit that when you can't defend, isn't it? And you go, well, I fucking just want a centre-half who heads and kicks everything clear, isn't it? You know, But you don't, do you? Because it's a bit like this argument about, I like my goalkeeper to be able to save shots. I'm not that interested in how he plays with his feet. But if he can't play with his feet, there's so many restrictions to what you want to do. And it's the same with the centre-halves, isn't it? As much as we moan about it when we concede or we make mistakes or whatever, isn't it? But it's just such a big part of the way that the game's played today, isn't it? So as a goalkeeper, you have to be able to play with your feet. And as a centre-half, if you play for 85% of the teams in the Premier League, you have to have some ability. You have to have some technical ability where you can play a pass. But you also have to have some vision where you can spot a pass. You know, and I think when we started off with this playing around at the back, we just asked them to pass the ball. Now we're adding to that. We're going to be able to introduce a bit of vision into your game. See things, you know, so when you're passing through the lines, you know, we're actually getting rid of some of the opposition players by a good pass, and it benefits us, isn't it? So there's more and more being added all the time. I mean, so yeah, to answer your question, Trevor, it won't be many years before those centre-halves won't be needed in the Premier League, that's for sure.
Yeah, feels like it. Look at you with the perfect example of the goalkeeper. Of course, that's exactly the point. That's evolved in the same way that the job of a centre half has evolved, and you have to be able to operate within the system. It's a perfect analogy. Fair play. I can't believe I'd overlooked that. Just to finish on Kwanzaa, who you brought up. He was interviewed recently. It was in the wake of Joel Matip's injury. You probably saw this. And he said, you know, something about my condolences or with Joel or whatever. But, you know, I had my eye on his shirt. It was my ambition or my goal was to get him out the team. And people, I think, are all so soft now. You know, you and I are of different eras when the game was fucking ruthless, and atmospheres and in dressing rooms were ruthless, and in fact people thrived on it. And so we're maybe not the right people to judge, but the reaction to it was like, ooh, that's a bit much, you know. But I have to say, I just loved it. I loved the kind of dead-eyed ambition of it. That's all I can remember from fellas who were successful. They were the lads who would, you know, step over their granny's grave to get what they needed to get. You know, it's a part of being successful, surely.
A friend of mine sent me that clip. He's the same age as me, 60, and I went, "What the fuck's wrong with that?"
Yeah, you know what's wrong with it?
Got a young kid who want to play. He's ambitious. He wants to play. He understands that to play, you have to take somebody's place. He didn't want him injured. Of course, he didn't want him injured. But he goes, the only way I can play in that team is by taking somebody's place, isn't it? You know, I'm not going to make two bones about it. That's the only way I get in, isn't it? Fucking hell, Trevor. The world, eh? What's next, Trevor? We're going to have a BBC Sports Personality Winner of the Year. Somebody who's never won anything. Oh, no, that would never happen, would it?
No chance. At least we had the king to balance out things on the day. That was a lovely speech. Did you get to see that?
No.
Oh, it was lovely. Yeah. So Kenny got lifetime achievement.
Yeah, I seen the pictures and whatever. I didn't
award. Yeah, the speech was incredibly emotional. I'll be honest, it nearly had me down. It was great. So yeah, that, like I say, that kind of balanced things out on that one. The upshot from last night is we have a couple of questions that we need to address. And that is, with the team that we went with last night, where Trent was out and rested, Mo didn't start, but I'm specifically talking about Trent now. We had to go with a more orthodox sort of setup. Joe Gomez was, you know, doing what a right back does, and a really heartening display, I thought, from the kid on the left. He looks like he's back to the best that he has been for us in the past. We thought, this lad's actually very solid. He's a really good squad player to have if Robbo's out. The fall off is not too strong at all. I thought he struggled when he came in first, and it was really good to see him do well on that side, Costas. But here's where I'm going at. Suddenly, Dom Szoboszlai is playing well again. And I'm wondering, is it because we have, by dint of the personnel there, the personnel on the field, abandoned the galaxy brain idea of inverted fullbacks, and we just had, you know, fellas working as a unit. Endo doing really well. It was great to see him as well. I think we're starting to see what he can offer in terms of doggedness, determination, but he's also very progressive with his passing. Curtis Jones doing his thing really well. Harvey Elliott buzzing around. It just felt as if there was a little bit more of a traditional Klopp shape to the team, and as a result, everyone benefited. Maybe that's reading what I want to read into it, because I'm so pissed off with this thing. Either play the lad midfield or play him right back, where he is the world-class right back that we've been watching for 3 years. What do you make of that, Jan? Did that dawn on you at all, or what do you think of that as an idea?
It didn't dawn me as I watched the game, but now you explain it to me, I can understand what you're trying to say. I mean, the thing with Trent is, it isn't, and they make such a big deal, don't they, when Joe Gomez comes on as a substitute and he gets moved into midfield and then blah, blah, and whatever, isn't it? I think it helps the midfield players. If Jurgen Klopp, for me, will always be a 4-3-3 manager. You know, the inverted fullbacks and whatever, that's Pep Guardiola stuff, isn't it? That's not how Klopp works. Klopp works on something that's very visible. You know, we can all see what a Klopp team wants to do. And I think when that works, it has its best. And that's why.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit libertyshield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
And there's only been 2 top teams in the last 7 years in the Premier League. That's why so many people prefer to watch Liverpool, because visibly it's much easier on the eye. And I think that's when we're at our best, isn't it? So Joe Gomez, I think Joe is looking good physically. He looks strong, he's quick, still a little bit clumsy every now and again with the ball, isn't he? He's not of Trent standards, but I easily think you can get away with him as a right back, but you probably don't have to, because I say this once again, I prefer Trent to play as a right back. I still think we get 90% of the same thing when he plays right back as we'd get if he played in midfield. And it would make it much less confusion for everybody. So let him just play as a right back.
It just seems a massive coincidence that all of a sudden Szoboszlai's on the ball and looking so sharp when he had really been off the boil. And this is... I'm not trying to... I hope this is not interpreted as me saying anything negative about Trent. I think there's a world where we either play him in midfield or we play him at right back, and I like those two worlds. I don't like this in-between one, because I think it's just causing a lot of unnecessary confusion in the team. I don't know if it's being as effective as a lot of people were hoping it would be. And so there's another thing that came out of last night, which was that Darwin Núñez was playing primarily from the left-hand side, which was interesting to watch with Cody Gakpo central. Don't know if Cody did enough to hold his hand up for a start, but I will say the goal is very important. But the thing about Darwin from the left is the next thing I want to talk about with you, and it'll kind of be a good segue, because we're talking about Arsenal coming up, and I'm wondering, is that the place to play him now? I mean, would you go Darwin and Gakpo and Mo as our attacking three against Arsenal? Because it's hard to leave the fella out. He's involved in so much, like he was last night. During the game, I felt if he didn't get a goal, it'd be an awful mess and an awful missed opportunity, because it feels like he really needs the goal. But he doesn't go hiding, Jan. He's still there. He's still productive. He's the one who assists Curtis Jones. So I don't know if it matters. And I really like him from the left. The alternative, of course, is Luis Diaz, who's so off the boil, it's unbelievable. So if you wouldn't mind just focusing on the attack that you might like to see against Arsenal, and then we'll speak about Arsenal briefly.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Trevor, because if Núñez is going to play through the middle, he'll come up against Saliba. And
tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.
That kid is a good defender. He's physically strong. He's quick. He's good on one-on-one situations. Whereas I've never been convinced by Ben White as a right back. I think there's weaknesses in his game. So I think as a one-off, and then sort of isolate two Arsenal centre-halves without anyone to mark by playing Cody in that roaming role. And then he can be, because Arsenal they'll press high with the 5 attacking guys, and then obviously have Declan Rice in there. But if you could have somebody like Cody Gakpo floating about in there, who might just upset the way that they want to go about things, I think that possibly as a one-off might work better. And then Darwin Núñez can work that channel one-on-one against Ben White or in behind Ben White, because Ben White can be quite wasteful with the ball. He's not necessarily a great passer. So possibly as a one-off, because it's Arsenal, and because you think, well, if Núñez goes through the middle, Saliba might just take him out the game, isn't it? So, yeah, it would make sense to give him a role on the left.
That's interesting. I like that you've looked at their personnel and how it might match up. Before we talk too much about the rest of the little things we want to talk about with Liverpool, let's just take a minute and have a look at Arsenal. And I mean, they're sitting pretty young, top of the table, a point ahead of us. Everything's very close. You know, we're plus 21 goal difference. They're plus 20. It's all very, very close. City, of course, are looking at in the immediate future. I think the two lads travelled with their World Club Cup squad, De Bruyne and Haaland. So they're looking at having them back, and this wobble that they've been on will probably then get righted. So they're going to go on one of their tears, their sort of post-Christmas tears, no doubt. So it's going to be very, very difficult to win this league. I love the fact that it's in Liverpool's hands. If we beat Arsenal, then we just have to stay ahead. I mean, that's an easy thing to say, but it's lovely to be in that position, and every one of us would have been delighted with the opportunity to have this situation. But just to focus on Arsenal for a minute, because I think it's easy to dismiss them. Let's start with Arteta. What do you make of him? Do you think he's the real deal? Do you think this Arsenal side are the real deal? Because it didn't look great last year. They thought they had the League won on a couple of occasions, and it fell away pretty badly for them. But that will happen until you get the experience. Now, with that experience, do you think he has and they have what it takes to actually win this out?
So I think Arteta is a good coach. You know, I think Arsenal are very well coached. He's added to what they had last year. A lot more control. He's changed the goalkeepers, which not everybody agrees on, but I think this David Raya he's brought in from Brentford is a better goalkeeper than Ramsdale, and Declan Rice has been a real star for him. So I think he's added to what they already had. Is he the real deal? Is he capable of winning the Premier League when he's competing against Guardiola and Klopp? I'm not so sure, but then many wouldn't. It's a very difficult ask. But as this Liverpool Arsenal on Saturday, there isn't a great deal between the two teams. You know, there's some wonderful players in both teams. If anything, the home advantage, Anfield, will probably be the one thing that might push me towards Liverpool. But in terms of what we're going to see on the pitch, there isn't a lot. But Arsenal, of course, have to. First and foremost, they have to learn to play at Anfield. They haven't been very good at that for a number of years now. And also this year, when you look already, lost at Newcastle, lost at Villa, drawn with Chelsea away. So they found this maybe a little bit difficult in away games. Their four attackers last year, Martinelli, Saka, Martin Odegaard and Gabriel Jesus, scored a lot of goals. They haven't this season. So they just don't seem as free-flowing as they were last year, but they have a lot more control. Is Arteta the real deal? I don't know whether Arsenal win the league with him or not. I mean, the club's hierarchy has decided he's the real deal, and they're giving him what he wants. He had 200 million in the summer. They'll probably give him money again in January. So they feel that he's the right man. Now he's got to go and prove it.
Yeah, you wonder, I suppose, what I'm saying, where I'm going with this is you wonder if they were to fall away again in a disappointing fashion, whether or not then all of a sudden, football being what it is, he might be under a little bit of pressure, and Arsenal are going to have this notion that they should be winning the league now because from his efforts and the team's efforts and the squad that he shaped, they've gotten close a couple of times. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what will happen there. But I agree with you. I think there's a lot more solidity to them this year. They look less likely to bottle anything, I think. So it's all the more important that the Reds pick up the win at home against them on Saturday. In order for us to do that, Jan, we're going to have to go strong. We touched on what we might do in attack. There was a time when you and I spoke endlessly about the midfield because it was the only unit that would change. It has to change again, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately. I don't see any way around because it looks as if this injury to McAllister is a lot worse than people were saying initially. I don't see any other way around the selection than Curtis Jones and Dom Szoboszlai and Endo, because I think Endo and Curtis really showed up well in recent games, and Dom's back on it. I don't see any other combo that works necessarily for me, because I think Gravenberch's been disappointing when we really needed him on a few occasions. So he might need a little bit more time to bed in. But that's just my opinion, and who cares? What's your take?
I think what you need against Arsenal in midfield is not somebody who carries the ball, but it's somebody who passes the ball very quick. Because if you decide to carry the ball against Arsenal, the first person you're going to meet is Declan Rice, because that's his job. Anyone who carries the ball, you go and meet him. But if you've got somebody who passes the ball, and that's what's needed in it, it's pass the ball from midfield into our front three, isn't it? So I think that would, in my opinion, rule Ryan Gravenberch out, because he's a carrier. There will be other games where it's great to have a carrier, but I'm not sure in this game. I'd rather have rapid passes, people bang, bang, bang. And coming back to, we spoke about Endo, we spoke about Szoboszlai. Well, Curtis Jones missed out in the first game of the season. Then he came into the team with a very specific role of being part of helping us, making more passes, keeping the ball better. And I think he's done that. He's had a couple of injuries that's disrupted his flow. And again, it's made people forget about him. Now, I think he's as likely to be in our strongest midfield three as any of the others, because I think he's just as important, and I think it's clicked for him. What does it take to play 50 or 60 games for a club like Liverpool? I think it's clicked in his head. He's gone, okay, I wanted to be a bit of a showman, but Klopp was not after the showman, was he? He was after somebody he can rely on, and I think that's what he's got now.
Yeah, very interesting hearing Jurgen talk about Curtis. He was very much referring to that exact thing about how he used to slow the game down a little bit, and now it's like you say, it's almost like it's dawned on him that he needs, what Jurgen needs from him in this system is to keep the tempo high and move the ball quickly, and it's great to see that. And I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, say we had a full squad to pick from. We can't include Thiago in this conversation because we don't know how long it's going to take him to get up to full fitness. But I think if a fit Thiago playing at his very best is in your best midfield, obviously he has to be. He's one of the best I've ever seen do it. But leaving him out, if McAllister's back, I think the three is Curtis, McAllister and Szoboszlai in the absence of a notable defensive midfielder. Harsh and Endo, but I think that's how good Curtis is, just to echo your thoughts on it. Would that make sense for you as well if we did have a full squad to pick from?
Yeah, I also think, and it's a massive advantage for Curtis, is that he's been involved for so many years now. He knows what a full season flat out looks like, and he knows what's expected. Whereas our new players can't. It wouldn't surprise me. Let's say Endo had to play every game. It wouldn't surprise me he got to February and he blew up for whatever reason. Curtis doesn't have that. He's been part of staying the distance, So I think that's a massive thing. When we talk about Arsenal, last 2 seasons, Trevor, they got 15 points in the last 10 games. Both seasons, identical. 10 games, 15 points. That doesn't win you no league, does it? So it's about staying the distance, isn't it? That goes for a team. But in that, it's the players, isn't it? So we have a player in Curtis that we know who can stay. He can stay the distance for 50 games, So I think that's a massive advantage for the kid, is that Klopp knows, but he's okay. I can right to the line. He'll go right to the line.
Would you be upset if there was a particular shape in the defence? Because I'm so happy with what we've seen from Kwanzaa, with Joe Gomez's form. That whatever Klopp decides to do, I think he'll be fine. I think nominally you go with your strongest one. It's probably Ibu, Kanate, and Virgil, with the two fullbacks either side in Costas and Trent. Of course, that will probably lead to Trent doing his drifty into midfield thing again and whatever. But I see it. I can't see him going with anything other than that, and it feels harsh enough on Joe. But again, not a bad lad to have to call on if we want to change the shape up. And we've seen that happen in recent games quite regularly, where Trent is pushed on and Joe comes in. Do you see anything other than those obvious four starting?
No, I can't. But it wouldn't overly bother me if he did something else. If I was the manager, I'm not, but I'll play young Billy. I think he's ready for that type of, and I think he'd give us something slightly different, because Konate still gives me a little bit every now and again. I'm not quite sure. And I've often said about Konate is that he reminds me of somebody who needs to play 50 consecutive games to get to the next level, because I still feel he's at the level where he's been at for 2 years, and that's to do with rhythm. But if you could play 50 games on a bounce, or be available 50 games on a bounce, I think he'd be able to take him to the next level, isn't it? But I think Konate is a certainty to start. And I think because of what happened against West Ham, I think there's every reason that he might just think that Nunes on the left might just be a good outlet.
This break is brought to you by Adobe Photoshop. Here's a fun fact. Every day, millions of people around the world use Photoshop to create all kinds of cool stuff. Designs for t-shirts and posters, graphics to promote brands and businesses, images for social and websites. Anyone can do it. And to the guy who put a bulldog's head on a parakeet's body, you, sir, are a genius. Get started for free today. Click or tap the banner to head over to Photoshop.com.
Yeah, well, if Konate is channeling Joel Matip with his charges up the field like he did last night, we'll all be happy if he's free to do that. I'm absolutely going to call Jarrell Quansah Billy from now on. I think you had Billy Cometio in your head.
Sorry. Jesus Christ.
There's no way I'm calling him anything else from now on. That's fucking fantastic. I love it. I can't believe that. The last thing that remains then is that we get a feel from you about how you think it's going to go, because it is the big game. We've all had our eyes on it for ages. People maybe arrogantly look past the Mank game as a given or whatever, but they didn't look past this one as a given. This was always going to be a top of the table clash. It's exactly that. We can go top with a win. What do you reckon is going to happen, Jan?
Yeah, there's sort of a nice feel to the game, isn't it? It's a real big game, isn't it? I think it's going to be tight because of the way in the past you could have set your clock by how Arsenal would play at Anfield, and there's been some heavy defeats, hasn't there? 3, 4, and 5s because of the way that won't be the case on Saturday. It'll be a lot more organised. They do play with an inverted fullback when Zinchenko steps into midfield alongside Rice, and they do that quite well, although Zinchenko is a weakness defensively. So I just got a feeling that it'll be a tight game. We'll have our moments, they'll have their moments. But I think in the end, we might just share the points.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So
unless Billy plays.
Unless Billy's on the job. Yeah, we've gone round the houses again. A lot of different topics covered there, which I always really appreciate. I'm just dropping these things on you. You always roll with the punches, so I appreciate it very much. So for yet another show, thank you.
Back to the darts, Trevor. World Championship darts. When there's no football on TV, we watch the Arrows.
I'll take your word for it. In fact, I'll take your recommendation. I'll go and have a look. There's a 16-year-old playing darts who looks about 45. That's all I know.
He does look like 45, doesn't he?
He does.
He's quite local to Merseyside. Runcorn.
Yeah, you can hear the accent. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks a really, really good player, but he does not look 16. But yeah, Luke Littler, unbelievable. And while we're at it, Merry Christmas to everybody who's listening. But yeah, very exciting. Can you imagine being... He's probably already one of the top players in the world at 16, But I like to see what he looks like when he's 25.
I don't think you do. I don't think any of us will see it. So we will wrap it up there. As Jan says, Merry Christmas to all of you. This is our last one before the festivities kick off. Hope you have a great one. Very appreciative of Jan's contribution as always. Do keep your ears here and listen to all the stuff you can on the channel. From me, from Jan, happy Christmas. We'll talk to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.